from my motion. They said even the prosecutor has said, and they quote me in the motion, which is kind of nice because judges don't normally do it. And so I figured, okay, well, we're back to square one. We're going to have a trial. The case was tried, and the jury came back pretty quickly with a not guilty. Mr. Moldawan was freed, and although I still don't have the mind of God to look down and tell exactly what substantial justice was. In other words, I was not a witness. I was never a witness. I really can't say if he were really involved in that. I can say that I am satisfied to a moral certainty that this man should not have been convicted in the first place on the basis of that evidence, because in our system, the only way that you should convict somebody is if you have evidence sufficient to prove the person's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And if you don't have that quantum of evidence, that's the same thing in my mind as saying that the person is stone cold innocent, because you can't have a system in which the state can just on a good guess incarcerate somebody. And so Mr. Moldawan was freed, justice was done. Shortly after that, Mr. Christini, his co-defendant, filed a similar motion. The courts granted him a new trial. He was also acquitted in almost record time. And to my mind, although I still can't be certain, I believe that that was the correct result in both cases. Now, that's just the introduction. Although the rest of the story won't take that long. But it will set up some interesting questions and answers. And this other drama is even as significant as this was, because I wanted to make sure that a person wasn't wrongfully convicted. Something else happened on the way to absolute justice. And that is that in 2002, David Bonnier, a congressman in my area, a fine guy, probably one of the most decent, best political persons I've ever known, honest to a fault, just a wonderful person, ran for governor. Jennifer Granholm was his opponent. Jim Blanchard was in the race as well, and of course, as we all know, Jennifer Granholm became the Democratic nominee and then the governor of the state of Michigan. David Bonnier for a long time was the congressman in our area, but the Republicans and by the way, this is where I get a little partisan. I can't help it, I'm a Democrat, but when I was running for office, I had plenty of Republicans vote for me, so I don't want anybody who, on the other side of the aisle, to think that I have anything negative at all to say about the Republican Party or Republicans. It's only the current president of the United States that I think is a nerd. But other than that, I can get along well with a lot of Republicans. Right? But anyway, David said that he was going to run for governor. I didn't believe it, because David was on his way to become Speaker of the House until the Newt Gingrich crowd took over. And I thought he was going to be in Congress forever. But finally, in 2002, it turns out that he was actually running. Part of the reason he was running is that the Republicans in control of the legislature in Lansing had redistricted Michigan's congressional districts. We lost one because of population. And there was a promise made to, I think there was a promise, again, I don't know this with certainty, but it's the rumor and it appears to be true. Congresswoman Candace Miller was promised a safe congressional seat if she would not run for governor, so that Dick Postumus, John English Choice, could run for governor. And indeed, a safe seat was carved out of areas that David Bonnier at least had a part of the Macomb County area. And it left a new seat, which was an open seat, but badly canted in favor of the Republicans. It was about a 66-34 Republican district. Back in 2000, I had made a decision. I told my chief assistant that probably in the next 4 years ought to look for other work, because after what would then be 20 years as prosecutor in 2004, actually I remember the exact words came in. It says no mas. It was a play on words of some fighter back in those days who gave up in the middle of a fight by saying no more. I just wasn't going to run again in 2004. But when David decided to run for governor, there was an open congressional seat, and I always wanted to run for Congress. I just thought that was going to be a kid. Now, part of my brain, the better part of my brain, knew that I didn't stand a chance. I mean, I was a Democrat in a highly Republican district, running against a woman Republican candidate who had a moderate image, and even my gubernatorial candidate, it turns out, was going to be a woman. And so it was just a year in which, you know, I believe in gender balance, and I believe in all of that stuff, so I would have no problems with her running. It just had to be that, well, I had to be running against her. It was a bad year to do so. I knew right from the very start that I was probably going to lose, but it was one of those things where I figured it's a nice way to go out, and after being in politics all these years with either Sandy Levin or David Bonnier in my congressional districts, friends that I couldn't possibly in good conscience run against, I would at least have my jollies by taking a ride to try to go out that way. And the other reality is that I got good votes in Macomb County in the northern part, which was normally Republican, because they just liked me, all right? I have a libertarian streak in which I have some things that the Republicans kind of like, because I like small government rather than big government. I'm kind of like a mix on the liberal conservative spectrum, but enough about me. The point is that I had a shot, and polling showed that while I didn't have much of a shot, I was the strongest possible Democratic candidate, but it was still a likely loss. So I got involved in the race, and part of what I found when I got in the race is that politics ain't as much fun on the national level as you would think. The Democratic Party, and the Republicans do this too, so I'm not beating up on my own party, the Democratic Party sent me advisors, and all of their advice was exactly the same. You got to raise $2.5 million. So, wait a minute. Running for prosecutor, I've only raised about $250,000 in good years. All right? I can't raise $2.5 million. They said, well, you got to raise $2.5 million, you're not a serious candidate. And I said, look, I'll do my best, but I bet that I can't see raising more than 1.5, and 1 million is probable on this basis that I figure that I have like a year and a half, because this started in 2001, because at the end of 2001. And I figured I have almost twice as much time as the usual cycle, plus I get the advantage of raising money out of my county. I figured if I could raise $250,000 in my county, I could probably double that, and then after the primary, I could go back to the people I hit before and come up with $1 million. Actually, I came up with $996,000 at the end, so I did raise a lot of money. But in order to do this, what the slave drivers from Washington do is they sit you down by a telephone, and you make calls. You make calls after call after call. You do it on your lunch hour, you do it after work, you do it on Saturday and Sunday all day, you call into the night, you get up in the morning, and you're always just being given lists. And you just make calls, and it's always the same banal, lousy spiel that you're just trying to raise money. And the idea is that, you know, you call 100 people, maybe 3 will hit. And you're always asking for either 1,000 or 2,000. And so if you keep this up long enough, the theory is that you can actually raise whatever goal you have in mind as long as you put enough hours. Well, I wasn't the best candidate because after taking all the time off that I could possibly, in my good conscience, imagine from the prosecutor's office, I felt that I had to put in a certain amount of time in the prosecutor's office. The party didn't like that, but that's the way it was. So I made the calls when I could. Anyway, this is where this comes around to